So welcome everyone to this webinar about how law firms can use automation to turn prospects into customers. As I was telling some of the attendees who were here earlier, this marks one of our first webinars where we are focusing on a specific industry. We generally do our webinars about marketing problems that people in all industries face, but this is an opportunity for us to share the knowledge that we've picked up, at least at TARS. I know at Cleo, you guys almost exclusively focus on lawyers. So it's an opportunity for us to share the knowledge we've gained working with law firms across North America and across the world. So let's get started. As always, we like to begin our webinars with a brief intro of both the companies that are hosting the webinar and the hosts. We should probably have started with the hosts first, but we'll start with the companies first in this slide deck. The two companies that are hosting this webinar are TARS and Cleo. TARS has been around since 2016. And in that time, we've been helping businesses automate processes, boost conversions, and troubleshoot queries using chatbots. We're actually going to touch a little bit on all three aspects of what we do with chatbots in this webinar. So rather than tell you any more about it right now, I'll wait till we get to the actual content of the webinar to show you what it looks like in practice. And we are privileged today to be co-hosting this webinar with Cleo. Rio, I'll hand it over to you to give Cleo an introduction because you'll probably do a better job than I would.
Well, thank you. So Cleo helps law firms maximize their case management and client relationship management through our suite of cloud-based legal software. So we actually have two products. The first is Cleo Manage, and that kind of helps you run everything from managing your cases, invoicing, billing, document management, all those really core things to practicing law and running your practice. And then we also have Cleo Grow, which is our intake and client relationship management software, which is what I will be talking to you a bit about today, and telling you how you use that tool to really automate your intake process. And also, we're really happy to be joining you today. So thank you so much for including us.
It's great to have you here. And I know we got a little ahead of ourselves talking about the companies, but to tell you a bit about who we are, your hosts for today, I'm Arnav. I'm the regular host on these TARS webinars. So if you've attended a TARS webinar before, you'll know who I am. But for the newer attendees, I'm a content marketer over here at TARS. But the way we like to think about marketing at TARS is it's our job to essentially educate marketers out there about how they can get more out of their marketing campaigns. So rather than just a pure play lead gen approach to marketing, we really try our best to create content just like this, to be as informative as possible, for you guys, so that you guys can see a higher ROI on your marketing campaigns, can see more efficient internal processes if you're using chatbots for customer service or any other use case. And over to you, Rio, for a little bit of it.
So my name is Rio. I'm also known as Rio from Cleo, and I am the Affinity Partnerships Manager at Cleo. So that means that I work with all of the Bar Association and Law Society partners that Cleo has across North America. We have about 66 plus partners, and a lot of what I do with those partners is actually public speaking and a lot of education about just how lawyers can really maximize their efforts at streamlining their practices and really use tech tools to create efficiencies and really drive home the time that they're investing in building their business. So it is absolutely wonderful to be here. And I'm really excited to talk about kind of automation and streamlining workflows, because that's kind of one of my secret nerdy passions. So I'm really glad to be able to share these tips with you today.
It's great to have you on, Rio. Great to have you on. Now, usually at this point of our webinars, I give our audience an overview of what we're going to cover in the webinar. Just tell you the sections that we're going to have and then jump right in. But instead of doing that, I figured that for this webinar, the best way to begin was to start with this diagram, because this diagram is really going to inform everything that we talk about in this webinar. And shout out to the folks over at Lead Squared, their CRM. They're the ones who actually introduced me to this diagram in a webinar we co-hosted with them. Figured I should give them credit where credit is due. but essentially this diagram is going to inform everything that we talk about in this webinar. The whole purpose of this webinar is to talk to you about how you can convert people who land on your pages, who visit your sites, who click on your ads into clients using automation. So we're going to give you tactics to move people from this first stage of the marketing journey to the last stage of the marketing journey. And a couple of caveats I want to add over here are that, first of all, the marketing diagram isn't really as simple as I showed it in the previous slide. It's not a simple process of moving someone from being a visitor to a lead to a client. It's actually a pretty long and arduous process. And you'll also notice that there are a lot of holes along the way. And what those holes represent are the cracks through which your leads, through which your prospects fall through before they convert into an actual client. And we're going to show you how you can plug some of these holes in your buyer journey, in your prospect's journey to becoming a client using automation. And we're dividing the webinar up essentially into two parts, where we first talk to you about how you can use automation to get more people to convert from visitors into leads that are in your funnel. And then we'll talk about how automation can be used to convert more people from leads into clients. And as you might know from having looked at both of our products and having heard a little bit about what Tars and Cleo do, I'll be handling the first half of this webinar, where we talk about taking people from visitor to lead, and then I'll hand it off to Rio for the second part of the webinar to talk you through the lead to client stage. So with that, let's jump right in. I think that when we're talking about using automation to turn visitors into leads, we need a little bit of context to understand where we are in the world of legal marketing, where we are in the world of digital marketing in general, and what the unique headwinds that law firms face in the digital marketing world are. So to set the stage, I want to take you back in time a little bit to a time before digital marketing was a thing, back before we were in the middle of a pandemic where we did everything remotely. Back before the internet was even big and we shopped on the internet. Now, in that time, we used to actually go into physical stores, into physical offices to get things done. At most, we'd call a business to get something done, to buy a product. But the common thread through all of our buying decisions was that it involved some form of human interaction. We would, in most cases, speak to at least one human being somewhere near the top of the funnel and then through the funnel as well before we actually bought something. And then we all know what happens next. The internet becomes big. Smartphones, computers, internet access sees widespread adoption, and that gives rise to digital marketing as a channel and being able to buy things online. And along with that, what we see is a trend towards self-service commerce. And essentially what I mean by that is you can sit on your couch today and you can buy whatever you want off of Amazon. You can after a few taps on your phone, you can have a car come and pick you up at your house through a service like Uber. You can get food delivered to your home, and that change has been great for both businesses and customers, because for businesses, it essentially gives you unfathomable reach, because the friction associated with finding your products, the friction associated with getting in touch with you for a customer has reduced significantly. They can find your product laying in bed. They can find your product sitting on their couch. And for customers, it's obviously more convenient to shop online because, of course, you don't have to make a call to anyone. You don't actually have to go somewhere physically to buy a product. And it's not only restricted to the consumer products that I was just talking about, like Uber or food. Digital marketing has become the standard in legal services as well. Law firms have become increasingly reliant on digital marketing as a channel to acquire customers. I was actually reading a report while preparing for this webinar, which said that in that report, the respondents who they surveyed, 65% of them said that the majority of their marketing budgets were allocated to online marketing, and 78% of the respondents said that online marketing was their best performing channel. Now, I think that these statistics are important for two reasons. What's interesting about them is, first, the fact that more people found that digital marketing was their best channel than people who spent the majority of their money on digital marketing indicates that even the people who weren't spending the majority of their money on digital marketing were seeing the greatest value out of digital marketing. And the second notable thing about these statistics is that they were made in 2014. And to give you some perspective, 2014 was back when the iPhone still had a headphone jack in it. So it was a long time ago. You can only imagine that these trends have accelerated into the present, especially in our current existence where we're doing everything remotely. In fact, it's probably hard for a lot of you guys to imagine running a law firm today without digital marketing strategy in place. Even small law firms have some form of digital marketing strategy in place to acquire customers. It's unthinkable to have it any other way. Now, it might seem like we've reached a sort of teleological endpoint. We've reached a happy ending over here. Businesses get reach, customers get convenience. What's the problem over here? Everyone wins, right? Well, it turns out that there are actually a couple of issues specifically for legal services companies, especially for law firms in the digital marketing world. The first issue that a lot of law firms face is that conveying value through a digital asset is extremely difficult. You're dealing with a unique set of headwinds in the legal services space that businesses in other industries just don't face. So some of these headwinds, first of all, you're dealing with extremely high cost per clicks. So the pressure to convert people is a lot higher in legal services than in other industries. Second, legal services customers tend to be low information. The vast majority of people who are hiring a lawyer don't really have much legal knowledge themselves. And what that means is it's very hard for you to differentiate yourself versus your competitors on a landing page, because regardless of how much text you throw at them, regardless of how many testimonials you throw at them, you're just going to start to look the same as your competitors. And we know this to be the case. If you go to your competitors' landing pages, you go to your landing page, the branding might be different. But for someone who doesn't know too much about the law, who hasn't interacted with the law very much, it's all going to look the same to them. And on a related note, a lot of your customers, I'm sure you know this already, are extremely stressed out when they're making their buying decision. You're not going to a lawyer when something good has happened in your life. And believe it or not, but that stress affects their decision making further, and it affects their ability to make that buying decision. There's a lot of really interesting research out there in the realms of psychology, behavioral economics that tells us that stress affects our ability to make hard decisions like hiring a lawyer. And the end result of that is that the landing pages we're using today to convert people through these digital channels just don't work as a way to convert people into prospects. The conversion rates are extremely low on landing pages. And I don't need to tell you guys this because you guys are probably experiencing this. That's why you guys are on this webinar today. And then the second trend that's worth noting, this is across all industries, but digital fatigue is setting in. People's attention spans are dropping. You're competing for your customers' time with Instagram, Facebook, WhatsApp. If they land on your page and see a bunch of text on the page in a form, and they know that a few taps away they have Instagram, they're totally going to procrastinate, switch over to Instagram, switch over to Facebook, and continue scrolling over there, essentially wasting the click that you paid for or worked hard to get. And the end result essentially is that your current landing pages are not converting. I tried to blur out the name of the law firm here. I don't think I did a particularly good job of it. It was just the first ad I found on Google, but these landing pages just don't convert anymore. So what we found is that even though digital marketing gives us reach, it's not really giving us as many leads as we thought. And the solution, or actually to take a step back and think back to the marketing diagram that we drew earlier, the holes that we were talking about over here, the things that we use to capture leads, are actually not an asset for us. They're a liability. They are the hole over here that's causing people to slip through the cracks. And the end result of this is that a lot of law firms have been reverting to old ways of capturing leads through their marketing campaigns. So the holy grail for most law firms is to get someone to give you a call to book a consultation versus actually filling out a form on your page or staying on your page. And that process of them giving you a call essentially is reverting back to what happened before digital marketing was a thing, where people actually spoke to a human being to get something done. And the way we like to think about it is you're reverting back to the age of customer service, where you use customer service to convert someone into a lead that you could follow up on and turn into a customer. And it actually works because people do like having a conversation with people. So if you give them a phone number and they give you a call and you're able to get them on the phone, they're more likely to convert into a lead than if they were just on your landing page, because people like having phone calls. That's why when people call helplines, they click 0 to try and get on with an operator as quickly as possible. But while this has addressed the two issues that we were talking about with landing pages, it's not really a happy ending either. It is not. It is. It's close, but it's not quite there for a couple of reasons. Well, primarily, it all boils down to the fact that while digital marketing channels give you a lot of reach, your ability to respond to everyone as a human being, as a team of human beings, is limited. You can only be on one call at a time at max. You obviously can't work 24 hours a day. Hiring a team to field all of those calls for you, if you want them to field them for you through the day and after work hours as well, is expensive. So the end result that we're seeing is all of this traffic is being sent your way from places like Google and Facebook, and you have no way to address every single one of the queries that you get if they give you a phone call. And that's causing you to lose business again, because when people are waiting in line to get on the phone with you, when people aren't able to reach you outside of work hours, when you have to spend extra money to ensure that you have good service, that's increasing the cost of acquisition for you. That's reducing the likelihood of people moving from this visitor to this lead stage. So the question we need to ask ourselves is, what is the solution? How do we bridge this gap between human-based lead generation and self-serve lead generation? And the answer, at least according to us, is chatbots. And really quick, before we jump into how chatbots are better, what a chatbot essentially is an automated customer service rep that can answer questions that a prospect might have, capture lead information from a prospect, basically do all of the basic processes that a human agent would otherwise do over the phone or over a live chat. A chatbot can essentially do that for you. So if we have time over here, actually, I might switch out, go to a demo we have. This is an example of a chatbot that we built. It's just a demo chatbot, but over here you can see that it can respond to basic FAQs that a user might have. It can also walk them through the process of booking a consultation. So over here, it's answering a basic FAQ, and then we can jump into the get a free case review section where they're able to walk the prospect through the process of booking a consultation. A pretty basic flow over here, but as it turns out, it actually has a lot of advantages. But before we get into that, let's talk a little bit about where these chatbots figure into your marketing campaigns, because this is a question we often get from our customers. Oh, I'm having a slight glitch with my slides. If a webinar happens and there's no technical difficulties, did the webinar really happen? That's the question I constantly ask. Oh, we seem to have some technical difficulties. Just a second. Hey everyone, sorry, I had a little bit of an issue with Zoom. I'm going to jump back in over here and then we can get started again. So there are three places where these chatbots can figure into your existing marketing stacks. The first one is through a website widget. So it's what you're seeing on the screen right now, where you have a web page, you have a tiny little widget in the bottom right corner, a customer can click on it, and then they can drop into the conversation with the chatbot. Pretty standard, we see website widgets across the internet today. The second way that a chatbot can be deployed to your marketing stacks is through a conversational landing page, which is essentially what I showed you just now, where there's a chatbot on a web page. You drop that link into the ad campaigns that you're running as the landing page. And when someone clicks on your ad campaign, when someone clicks on your link, they're dropped directly into the conversation. The way I like to think about it is they're essentially skipping the line. Instead of having to go through the landing page, they're getting right onto that call with you, except instead of having a call with you, they're having a call with a piece of software that automates the conversation for you. And the third place the chatbots can get deployed to your marketing campaigns is through WhatsApp. So if you do have customers who are hanging out on WhatsApp, I know some verticals in the legal space do, WhatsApp is a great place to meet your customers where they're hanging out and answer their questions, capture their lead information. Now I want to speed up here a little bit so that Rio has some time to speak. But we essentially come down to the crux of why we're here today. So I'm essentially arguing that chatbots are a way for you to prevent people from falling through those cracks in the visitor to lead section of the buyer journey. And the reason that they're good at doing that, the reason that they're better at doing that than your traditional landing page or than you jumping on a phone call with your customers is for a couple of reasons. The way I like to think about it is they essentially bridge that gap between the self-serve landing page approach and the human-based phone call approach to lead generation. So like a human being, like a human agent, they are able to maintain that conversational experience that your customers want. So when people jump on the phone and they click 0 to get connected to an operator, we're catering to that desire in your customers by keeping the medium of interaction as a conversation. So customers, even though there is a piece of software on the other end, even though they know there's a piece of software on the other end, the fact that it is phrased as a conversation makes the customer feel like they're getting that customer service experience, and it helps them essentially cut through all of the text that would otherwise be there on your landing page. But at the same time, they sort of tread the line in between self-serve and human-based lead gen because they don't have all of the associated costs of you manually picking up the phone and having those conversations, because you don't need to hire a team to run a chatbot. The chatbot runs on its own. You just need one chatbot to handle all the conversations you're getting. A chatbot doesn't really need to sleep. So it's available 24/7. If someone clicks on your ad after work hours and they want to get a consultation, they want to ask you a question, a chatbot is there ready to field those questions. And of course, they have infinite concurrence. So at peak hours, if a lot of people are clicking on your ads at the same time, you don't have the issue of certain people going to voicemail or certain people waiting on hold for an agent to become available, because the chatbot can have all of those conversations simultaneously, because again, it's a piece of software. And the end result that we have from all of those factors coming together is that we've addressed all of the problems that we identified in the user journey in this first half at the very least. So unlike your landing pages, unlike your forms, a chatbot doesn't really, it maintains the conversational element of lead generation that your prospects want. So it's addressing those two aspects of this first part of the journey. But equally, it doesn't come with the added cost, the lack of 24/7 support, or the long wait times that you're used to seeing with a human-based lead gen approach. So we've essentially addressed all of the issues that we were talking about earlier, and that's essentially how automation or chatbots help you get more people from this visitor stage to the lead stage of the buyer journey. And really quick, before I hand it off to Rio, I think a good segue to talking about what Cleo does and how you can use automation in the second half of the journey. The other great thing about a chatbot is that they hook up directly into your CRM. So since a chatbot is a piece of software, their brain is essentially hooked up directly to your CRM. And every time they have a conversation, that data is synced in real time with your CRM. So there's no manual entry. All of your data remains managed all the time without any effort from you or your team. And then once it's in your CRM, you can run a whole bunch of more automation to nurture them from being a lead to a customer. And to talk about that, I'm going to hand it off to Rio. But before I do that, this is our contact details. We'll throw it up at the end as well in case you have any more questions. So I'm going to stop sharing my screen now and hand it over to Rio.
Awesome. So thank you so much, Arnav. That's so informative. And I think I just would like to say one of the things I really love about chatbots is that they give that appearance of availability. And a lot of people really like having a conversation. So it's definitely a good way to engage with people on your landing page. I myself have been a legal consumer and have definitely found it difficult when there's no way to engage with the landing page beyond, hey, call us. It's like, if I was on your landing page, it's not because I want to call you. It's because I want to chat to somebody.
Exactly.
Yes. So
yeah,
I'm going to go ahead.
Underrated. Go ahead.
It's underrated.
Sorry, I was saying that instant response is like a thing that I feel a lot of law firms don't think about, but people want that instant contact with someone at a law firm. And if you can automate that process, all the better, because it's less effort.
Well, that's exactly it. And the majority of people cannot tell the difference between a chatbot and an actual person on chat.
Right.
A well-designed chatbot can definitely just give the appearance of it being a person when it's not really. All right, so I'm just going to kind of shift the conversation now, and we're going to talk a little bit about turning your leads into customers. And kind of one thing that I wanted to mention, I wanted to really build off of the story that kind of Arnav has laid out for you, is that it's really easy to view lead capturing as just getting people through the door, right? So you've gotten their attention, they've, sent out an inquiry to you, but then what? It's really kind of half the job. And as you saw in the diagram that Arnav shared, is that there's a whole other process that takes place once that prospect or visitor has come in through the door and is now a lead. So once you've gained their attention, you actually have to do quite a number of things to convert them to a customer. So let's take a look and kind of talk about the non-traditional intake process and not the non-traditional, the non-automated intake process, and kind of what types of results that delivers before I start telling you, the ways that you can use automation to really streamline that process. So in 2016, the ABA conducted a study on law firm intake, and they examined things like response times to inquiries and the quality of information that was gathered during the overall intake process. And what they found was that 42% of the time, law firms take 3 or more days to reply to a voicemail or a web-generated form fill from a prospective client. Now, as we kind of touched on earlier, generally when somebody's reaching out to a law firm, there is a sense of urgency there. They're reaching out because there's a pressing issue that they need to have addressed right away. So waiting 3 or more days is not going to kind of instill a lot of trust in them for your law firm. So it's really important that you're able to jump on that lead and to follow up and respond to them right away. Not only did they kind of learn that, they also discovered that 50% of the calls that took place to kind of gain more details about the case didn't actually gather enough information. And a lot of them ended up having to have follow-up calls just to kind of fill in those gaps that were missed during the initial phone conversation. So again, that's something that's taking up your time. It's taking up your prospective client's time, and it's really not a good use of your effort and your marketing dollars as well. I mean, that's just increasing the cost to acquire this new customer. So not only, did 50% of those calls not gather enough information, but they also found that in less than half of the cases, in fact, 86% of the time, the email address for the prospective client wasn't taken. And in 45% of the time, their phone number wasn't gathered. So those are 2 really critical pieces of information if you want to start pushing those leads over through the journey and making them customers. You kind of need that information. And so lastly, I also wanted to mention that, generally speaking, the average law firm spends between 5 to 10% of their annual revenue on business development. And particularly if you're a small firm or even a mid-sized firm, so about 5 people or more, that's a significant chunk of your revenue. And you really want to make sure that you are maximizing the tools at your disposal to convert as many leads into customers as possible so that you're really getting the most for your investment and the most value for the time and money that you're putting into developing your business. And that is exactly where Cleo Grow comes in. So using a program that is specifically designed to manage legal intake is going to help you ensure that you're getting the most return on your investment by making it really easy to follow up with prospective clients. So Cleo Grow, as I mentioned before, is an intake and legal CRM or client relationship management software. So it helps you develop streamlined workflows, and it really helps you automate your entire client intake process. So one of the things that I wanted to show you, I've got a screenshot up here of Cleo Grow. So this is your main page. And one of the most valuable things that it can help you do is to ensure that none of your potential clients are falling through those cracks, that Arnav mentioned earlier. They're not falling out of the process because somebody forgot to follow up with them or, you've lost track of things. So on the screen here, we've got your kind of matter pipeline. So let's say that somebody has, interacted with the chatbot on your site, they've sent an inquiry to you, and because chatbots sync with your CRM software, you now have all of your newly added, there we go. You've got your newly added inquiries right in this column here, and they just automatically popped up there. And so now you have a visual of your entire intake process. And what's more, you can see exactly at a glance where each and every prospect is in that process. So let's say that now you've got, your new people coming in, you've got Jessica Yates, for example, and now what's next? So what needs to happen? So she's reached out to you. Well, she needs to have some intake forms sent to her. She needs to fill out some information and provide you with more information so you can assess whether or not her case is going to be a good fit for your firm. So the great thing about the Matter pipeline is that you can just simply move these little cards along the process. So it's really easy to keep track of everybody. And that's particularly helpful if you are working on your own, if you've got a smaller staff. This is going to save everybody so much time. So speaking of intake and intake forms, as we kind of touched on earlier, something that is a major pain point for law firms is data entry, right? Collecting information, collecting the correct information, and also getting that information into your system. So Cleo Grow allows you to create fully customizable intake forms, and you can create these as many as you want for whatever types of cases that people might be coming to you for. And some of the huge benefits of this is that, number one, you can share it via email, and you can have your prospect fill out all of this information. So that means that, number one, your prospect has now just done the data entry for you. Number two, you've reduced the likelihood that there's going to be errors or missing information. I mean, I would hope that prospects can, spell their names and fill out their phone numbers and all those things for you. And once all that information is in here and they've filled it all out, well, then you get a handy little notification that they've completed it, and all of the information is automatically uploaded into the system. So you have just saved yourself so much time and streamlined an entire process of doing intake and gathering that information, and cut down the amount of time you're spending on that significantly. So that's definitely just kind of touching on the tip of the iceberg of how a program like Cleo Grow can help you just streamline that initial intake of information. So moving through the kind of journey of a prospect from becoming a lead to a client, one of the next things that tends to happen is, well, maybe you need to schedule a consultation. So again, you can see here that you've got a column for that. So now you know who needs to have a consultation scheduled, if their consultation has been scheduled already. But the question is, how are you going to schedule that consultation? So it takes an average of 8 emails to schedule an appointment. That's a lot. That's a lot of back and forth. That's a lot of time that you and your staff do not need to be spending scheduling appointments for people. One of the really fantastic things that you can do, and a way that you can leverage Cleo Grow, is to use an online scheduler. And so Cleo has its own online scheduler that can be used through email. You can also have it load on people's phones and through mobile. There's a number of different ways you can access this. And what it does is it allows you to set your own availability. So you can decide which times you'd like to be available for consultations. And then you can just send a booking link to your potential client, and they can choose the time that works best for them. And it's a very simple process. They choose their day, they choose their time, and bada bing, bada boom, you both get a confirmation and an appointment into your calendar, and you've just saved yourself so much time. Not only that, but a very handy feature of this is that you can actually connect it to LawPay. So if you are charging for consultations, you can have your prospect pay for their consultation right up front as they're booking that appointment, so that when they come to your office, or probably via Zoom at this point, when they show up and you have your consultation, you can really focus on spending all of that time discussing the details of their case. You don't need to worry about any of those sort of administrative aspects. Another really fantastic feature of this is that your potential client can reschedule the appointment if necessary. There's an option for them to do that. So again, saving everybody so much time and eliminating the need to go back and forth just to set up a time to talk with somebody. So I want to kind of zoom out a little bit and talk a little bit about the intake process as a whole. Now, there are so many different moving pieces when it comes to intake. We have our data entry piece, we have scheduling appointments, we have drafting and sharing documents, sending engagement letters, kind of all of those different things can be very difficult to keep track of if you don't have an actual system or process in place. And the same study that I mentioned before, the study done by the ABA, actually found that some of the things that take up the most time during the intake process is transferring information from, whatever your intake process is into your practice management software, and then drafting engagement letters and documents, and tracking and following up with prospects. That in itself can be a huge piece, particularly if you have a number of prospects kind of in the works. So Cleo Grow is actually equipped with the ability for you to create customized workflow templates. And so up on the screen here, I have a picture of, or a screenshot of what a matter looks like. So, when somebody comes into Cleo Grow, automatically a page like this gets created for them, and it has all of their information. But one of the really handy things that it has is this little drop down here where you can select an actual workflow template. So for whatever stage of the process they're in, you can select a list of tasks that have to be performed in order for that stage of the process to be completed. So this checklist that my handy little arrow is pointing to now will show you stats of each task, whether or not it's been completed, kind of is it in the works, who's working on it. And not only will it give you kind of a visual into that, but every single person who is working at your firm will be able to see exactly where each person is in the stage of the journey and what is yet to be done. So you're ensuring then that people are not falling through those cracks because somebody forgot to follow up with them, or person A thought that person B, sent them their engagement letter already. You can actually see whether or not it's been done. And that's like, again, such a huge time saver for, streamlining your workflows and just ensuring that nothing gets missed, right? Because it's so important that you are paying attention and ensuring that everybody is moving through the process quickly and efficiently so that their legal needs are getting addressed and you are able to grow and build your business. All right, so the last thing I want to touch on here quickly is nurture campaigns. So we all know that there is a number of reasons that people don't get hired. So, maybe it's not a right fit for them at the moment. Maybe their legal issue has just magically resolved itself, which, sometimes happens. But anyway, so sometimes people do fall out of that journey before they are kind of hired on as a client. But that doesn't mean that they're never going to come back. It doesn't mean that they will never have another issue to deal with. Not only that, but you may have clients, past clients, who will need legal help in the future. So a really great and effective way to kind of keep in touch with those people and to keep you in their mind as an option for whenever they do have a legal issue is to set up what's called a nurture campaign. And you can do this through Cleo Grow. So you can set up a series of emails, templates that you draft up ahead of time to just kind of send regular check-ins with your potential clients. Like, hey, it's been 6 months. How is everything going? Do you need any assistance? Here, book a consultation. Here's a link for you to book a consultation. Or if you didn't end up hiring them, hey, just checking in, want to make sure everything is okay. Just making sure you still don't need any help. But if you do, we're here for you. People really appreciate that. People appreciate you checking in with them. It helps to build a relationship. It helps to build trust, and it helps them to kind of remember you as an option. And not only that, but they might not have a legal issue, but their friend might, their family member might. And who are they going to refer? It's going to be you because you took the time to check in with them. Well, they thought you took the time to check in with them, but really you just automated the process. And you've, again, given the appearance of being available all the time and being at their beck and call, but yet you're actually not. You're focusing on your work and focusing on practicing law, which is kind of what you were trained to do. So again, those are just some of the ways that Cleo Grow can really help you to kind of streamline all of your workflows. I mentioned before, that's really the tip of the iceberg, and I mean that. There are so many other features you can use within this program, including reporting, which is one that I wish that I had actually put in here. I will touch on quickly. Cleo Grow automates all of your reporting so that you can actually calculate how much it is costing you to acquire each new customer and also where they are coming from. So did they see your ad on Facebook? Did they see your ad on LinkedIn? Did they see your ad on Google? Where are these people coming from so that you know where to allocate the most of your marketing budget? Yeah, so that's kind of a quick overview of Cleo Grow and just like some of the ways it can help streamline your process. If you have any questions, you can feel free to reach out to me, Rio from Cleo on Twitter, or you can email rio.peterson@cleo.com and I can answer all your questions or give you more information.
Thanks for that, Rio. Honestly, I'm not a law firm. I don't run a law firm myself, but a lot of those features I could honestly use in my workflow as well, just as a marketer in general, especially the scheduling. I mean, as we're organizing all of these webinars, by far the biggest point of friction is scheduling an appointment to talk with the people we're doing webinars with. And the 8 emails to schedule an appointment sounds about right, because you propose a time, they come back to you with a different time that doesn't work for you, and it on and on it goes.
Exactly. I've actually thought about using Cleo Grow to manage my partners. I have over 35 partners that I work with, and it's sometimes really hard to keep track of what's going on with all of them. So there's definitely a lot of potential there for a tool like that.
Right. I mean, the way I like to think about it is the CRM is sort of the brain of your entire marketing and sales operation. It stores everything that you need to know, and it has all the processes that you need to execute encoded in it. And to that end, the chatbot is sort of like the mouth, which is obviously linked to the brain.
Yeah.
It talks to the customer, and the brain on the back end, the CRM, is handling essentially all of the rest of it. But thank you everyone for joining us. If you guys need to leave, you guys can, but we have about 20 minutes left in the session. We were trying to get through the slides as quickly as possible in case you guys had any questions, in case you guys had any doubts, if you had anything, if you felt like we didn't cover anything, feel free to drop them in the Q&A section or in the chat. We'd be more than happy to answer them. I think both Rio and we scheduled this webinar to end at 11 Pacific time. So if you guys have any more questions, we will be around for a little bit over here.
Yeah, absolutely. And this is that moment where you just kind of sit and you endure that Zoom silence and see if anyone's going to post a question.
Pretty much. I anticipate that I'm anticipating that our audience is frantically typing out their questions right now to send over to us. Or maybe our presentation was just so good that we covered pretty much everything and they don't have any questions.
Oh,
okay.
No, we did not. We have a question. But that's okay. We love questions. Yep. Okay, so
is Cleo for, yeah. So the question over here is Cleo for big law firms, or does it make sense for small law firms as well?
Okay, so I love this question because Cleo is actually designed and was originally intended for small firms. The idea is that Cleo Grow and Cleo Manage can help you manage all of those different hats that you have to wear as a solo or small firm. So we were actually really built for small firms. We are kind of pushing towards larger law firms at the moment. But small firms is really, I feel, where tools like this are most needed, especially when you have limited manpower, you have, limited resources to manpower. A tool like this can really just help you manage all of those moving pieces that are hard to keep track of when you're the only person working at your law firm.
Right. So the next question that we have over here is amazing webinar. Thank you. Can you talk a little bit more about how the chatbot and the CRM work together? Sure. So maybe the best way to do this would be to share my screen over here so that you guys can see what the back end of the chatbot looks like. Just a second. So this is the chatbot we looked at earlier. It was inspired by, we actually created this chatbot as a demo in one of our previous webinars where we took an existing landing page of a law firm that we found on Google Ads, and then we converted it into a chatbot on the webinar, which you guys should check out on our webinars page. But this is what the chatbot looks like on the front end, as I showed you. And on the back end, what the chatbot looks like is essentially a flowchart. For some reason, all of my web pages load extremely slowly when I am screen sharing on Zoom. But what the chatbot looks like on the back end is a flowchart. So it's super easy to make one of these things because most lawyers don't know how to code, but any lawyer probably knows how to make a flowchart. If you've gone through middle school, I'm sure you've you've had to make a flowchart at some point in your school. If you can, the way I like to think about it is if you can write an email, you can create one of these.
Mhm.
And because it's structured as a flowchart, because the conversations are so well structured, and because we've sort of divided it up into where we capture their name, where we capture their case details, where we capture their phone number, all we have to do in this flow to sync up with the CRM is send these details through an API call to your CRM. And most CRMs, Cleo included, I presume, has an API associated with it that lets you send that data. Send that data over. So once you have that set up, we don't have it set up over here. What we could do is we could set it up at the end of the lead gen process. So once we collect the name, case details, and phone number, all we need to do over here is make an API call to send that information over. And I know this might seem super complex to a lot of you guys, so we have you covered on that front as well. If you don't want to get into the weeds of figuring out what an API is, how they work, and how you can send the information, what we also have is a data integration section. And you'll notice that one of the integrations that we have is a Zapier integration. Now, Zapier is a service that essentially allows you to transfer data between any of the software that you're using. They have hundreds of apps integrated into it. So any of the apps that are on Zapier, you can transfer data between those apps. So Tars is an app on Zapier, and Cleo is an app on Zapier as well, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes.
Right, Rio? Exactly.
Yes, absolutely. Yep.
Yeah. So all you need to do is jump in here, click the button to use the Zapier integration, or you can over here, if you click add integration, then all you need to do is it'll give you essentially a form where you say, okay, which detail from the conversation do you want me to send to which field in your Cleo dashboard. And once you have that set up, every time this chatbot has a conversation with someone, every time this chatbot speaks to someone and captures all of their information, through Zapier, it'll automatically send all of that information over to your Cleo dashboard. It'll send it automatically over to your CRM.
Yes,
Hope that
and
answers your question. Yep.
yeah, and maybe I can take a second to show you what that looks like on the Cleo side of
Sure.
things.
Let me stop my screen share. And
Okay, so all right. So again, so this was our kind of matter pipeline that I showed you originally. So this is our newly added link, right? So let's say that somebody fills out all of that information through your chatbot. And if we click into this, you can see the matter. All of the different fields and kind of information that you've captured in the chatbot is then synced to all of these different fields in your matter. So we have the email that they entered is already linked to this field. Their phone number would be linked to this field. Kind of all of these different pieces of information that they've filled out can just automatically be uploaded into here so that you've already got it there. You already have all of that uploaded right away. So easy peasy.
amazing. All right. So the next question we have over here is, how is Cleo, being an industry-specific CRM, different than other CRMs in the market which are not industry-specific? Great question.
That is a fantastic question. So the thing with Cleo Grow is that it is specifically built to capture case details and to focus on capturing legal information, capturing all the details that you might need for a case. It's also designed to be really, really straightforward and easy to use. I know that I myself use Salesforce. So I do use a different CRM, which is just what Cleo uses. It's kind of for larger companies. But it can be very complicated to use. A lot of CRMs out there that are not specifically made for legal services, because they're kind of made for anything, they can be really complicated to set up. There can be, yeah, I guess a very steep learning curve there, whereas Cleo Grow is designed to, number one, just like plug and play pretty much. It's really, really easy and straightforward to use. It's also designed to sync directly to Cleo Manage, which is your your practice management software. And a lot of other just kind of general CRMs don't do that. They won't sync to your practice management software unless you use kind of a bridge there. So something like Zapier. But if you're doing that, you're ultimately paying for more programs than you need. So yeah, the idea is that it's meant to specifically address the needs of lawyers and to kind of work how they work. So I hope that helps to answer your question.
Right. And actually, the next question ties in kind of with what you were talking about as well. I think this is the last question that we have. So once we get through it, we should be done. But are you thinking of making an integration between TARS and Cleo? Great question. I've actually spoken to our product team about this quite a bit. We are in the process of expanding our integrations on the TAR side, and there has been a lot of interest from our customers who work in the legal services space to integrate with Cleo. So maybe after this webinar is over, Rio and I will jump on a separate call and talk that through.
Yes, absolutely. And we are always looking to add new tools to our app ecosystem. So yeah, I mean, obviously we're on board. TARS is fantastic. So
Awesome. Do you guys use Cleo? Do you guys at Cleo use chatbots for your own lead generation and capturing process?
that's a great question. So we use a combination of live chat agents during business hours and then chatbots after hours. So yes, we kind of, as we grew and scaled, I mean, we're a very large company now, and we found that kind of the influx of requests that we got, it wasn't possible for us to provide that kind of 24-hour presence for incoming leads. So yeah, we do a combination, but we will have a person kind of follow up once someone has gone through the chatbot.
Right.
Yeah.
And actually, that's a very common way of people using chatbots. Even on the TARS platform, we actually have a Zendesk chat integration. So if one of those FAQs doesn't answer what the question that a customer has, they can be dropped into a conversation with an actual agent if the agent is available. And that's actually a great way of using chatbots, I've found, because the way I like to think about chatbots, especially in the context of answering people's requests, is chatbots can handle almost 80% of the requests that come your way because they're extremely repetitive and they're extremely easy. But for the remaining 20% that are a little bit more complex, that are a little bit more niche, you still need a human being, because obviously chatbots aren't at the point where they're smart enough to answer those sorts of questions. But another way of thinking about it, another way of reframing it is, instead of thinking about it as a chatbot handling only 80%, what you can think about it is, before you use a chatbot, your human agents are handling all 100% of those requests. And if you implement a chatbot, you're automating away 80% of those requests. So that reduces the burden on your human agents considerably. If you have a long wait time, if you're getting a lot of requests, you can essentially circumvent that, where your human agents can focus on the queries that really need their effort. And then your chatbot can focus on the repetitive ones that really don't need human expertise to solve. That's the way we like to think about it.
Yeah, and I would agree with that too. I mean, it's good to think of chatbots like a tool, right? They're there to help you. They're there to help ease the burden on staff. They're there to simplify the process. And not every question needs a human attention, right? There's some very straightforward things. So chatbots, you use them any way you want. They're there to make your life easier. So the sky is the limit.
Right, right. I mean, that actually kind of answers the question that we have in the chat. Can chatbots be used to help with the help with conflict checking during the client gathering and vetting process? Yeah, theoretically it can. I mean, as you saw in our builder, it's extremely versatile. The chatbots are extremely versatile. You can build whatever flow you want in there. You can define the messages. You can define the details being collected. As you require for whatever purpose you require. And if you need to hook up with other systems, I imagine you do for conflict checking, you can through our integrations feature. So it's just a question of building out the flow, building out the messaging in a way that addresses your specific need. And again, if you can build a flow chart to capture the process of conflict checking, you can build out a chatbot to handle that. So that's the question you need to ask yourself. If the answer to that question is yes, then you can most definitely do it. If the answer to that question is no, then you might have to think of something else. But honestly, with processes like these, it's very rare to find a process that can't be encoded as a simple flowchart. Yeah, that's what I've come to find working with chatbots. When you hear about chatbots on the outside, you think of fancy terms like AI and NLP, but in reality, it's just understanding how to structure a process into its constituent parts and then arranging those parts into a structure that a user can flow through.
Mhm.
Great. Oh, great panel. Thank you both. Always great. Always
Oh my
great to see you, Rio.
Oh, awesome. I love that. I can't see you, but great that you're here.
Well, I think we'll leave it there. We answered a good amount of questions. We're going to let you guys go a little bit early. Thank you guys for joining us. As always with these webinars, we are recording it. So once Zoom goes through the process of processing the recording, we will put it up on our website, and we will send you guys a copy of the recording as well as a copy of the slides. We'll put all of those up on our webpage and send it over to you. Thank you guys again for joining us, and thank you, Rio, for joining us today.
Yes, thank
Representing
you so
Cleo.
much for having me. And again, yeah, thank you to everybody for coming and hearing what we have to say. And again, if you have any questions, feel free to reach out.
Of course, of course. Yeah. And to that end, my colleague Abhilash, who is actually a host on this webinar as well, as support, has dropped a link to our demo booking page in the chat. So if you guys want to learn any more about what we spoke about in this webinar, be sure to click on that link and book a demo with us. We'd be more than happy to help you guys out. With that,
Awesome. Thanks so much, everyone.
I will end this webinar.